Hey everybody, happy Monday. It is the GMG Monday Show free monthly episode here as we wind down September 2025. Man, I can't believe how quick this year has gone. It has been a rich, full roller coaster of crazy shit, all kinds of hobby stuff happening. Man, like just the most upside down run I could imagine, where nothing on my bingo card made any sense, and yet somehow all came true. Hope everybody's having a great week. And if you never caught this show before, this is the once a month free version of the weekly show that we do for the GMG patrons, where we basically plan out what my life's gonna look like, talk about everything we've been working on. As far as GMG, people come in and plan episodes that we're going to do for like indie games, features, spotlights, and I talk about what I've been working on and the things that are coming up. Take questions from our mailbag, which is because we have the patrons are literally all over the globe, every time zone, and so we try and do this around the noon hour Eastern Standard Time so that people can catch it either at the start of their day out in Pacific Time, end of the day out in the UK and Europe, and then totally upside down in the other half of the world, sadly. So it's just our 5 a.m. early morning wake up people on the treadmill at the gym who are typically catching us there. So like I said, I hope everybody's having a great week. Let's see who's in the chat. My man Andrew B is here, Tobias Newman's here, the Mike Grimshaw is here, Brian Krantz is here, Poodles with Guns is here, Chris Sly is here, Ryan Dunphy, It's All Fun and Games, GD Smith and the Saturday Night Live Band, and the man himself, Malev the Shinobi, hanging out in the chat. That actually is great because I usually do my what happened this week first. And if you guys haven't caught this is my big old plug once again for Malev's great helm. It is kicking ass. 8 days left in the crowdfund. Launched last week on a Tuesday, so we're just about a weekend. And currently sitting at almost $100,000 US. It's 65,000 of a $10,000 goal. US dollar EDUs, Canadian, almost $100,000. Sorry, I'm saying $100,000 US, almost $100,000 Canadian. 1,587 backers. And I did get a text from 11 over the weekend, which I will answer you about. Funnily enough, the guy you wanted to talk to is in the chat right now, but I got to text him as well. But yeah, man, he's doing great. If you want to talk to him, he is answering all the 297 comments in here. Like, he's been a busy boy. So let's give a hand to him real fast on his first ever crowdfund book publishing thing by himself for a nightly combat game on a single piece of paper, which is looking fantastic. If you guys haven't checked it out, this is just me doing, I'm not getting anything for this. Love's just one of my longtime hobby friends and a patron, so I just figured I would talk about what a great job he's done. But if you want to check out the game, obviously here it is. Other things coming this week in the indie sphere, we've got Riskbreaker's Gambit on the Indie Hour. We recorded this last week. If you're a big fan of like old sort of like JRPG turn-based combat video games, this is Jeff's lovely sort of like homage to that. You create like a small group of characters, Final Fantasy Tactics style, and you go off on little adventures in a gridded 18 by 18 inch board. My second piece of news in there. Third piece of news, we just launched the new podcast we're doing for Warcrow, me and Ben. You can see on here on Corvosphere all the stuff that you might want to find out for playing the game. So Corvus Belly finally releasing a prototype beta version of their app for everything that's currently available. And we're going to be doing breakdowns of each of these 5 factions going forward in our Heroes to Zeros series. So that's going to be coming up relatively soon. So these are some things that happened last week. And then finally I did a little bit of writing and some reviewing, which was great. I reviewed Secret Passages, which if you guys didn't watch the review of this one, this is probably one of my favorite reviews of the week. You can see here my stack of old shit. This magazine is basically an homage to the classic sort of like RPGs and tabletop games of the series. The reason I just cut away from that view is because every time I try and move forward in a video, it shows an ad. So I'm just going to pause it right now. You guys can check this out. There we go. Go back to it now. Reviews of like things like old novels, where the lore and IP used to be for various games. And this is just a really neat, it's hard to describe what it actually is. it's a magazine about old magazines almost, if that makes sense. And there's 2 issues done. There's the first issue there, you can see the black and white cover, and then actually my buddy Rich Sampson, who did all of the t-shirt art for the GMG t-shirt, has done the cover for the second one, and he is a fantastic traditional artist living lost out in the outback of Australia. So highly recommend this right here if you're into old shit. And that was one of my 2 reviews. And then finally, like I said, I did a little bit of writing. I wrote this, No Turning Back. This is going to be a campaign system, just a very rules light 2-page campaign system for playing through joint ops missions, because I just wanted to add a little secret sauce to it. I wasn't super excited about just playing games that weren't linked narratively, and so I came up with like a simple 2-page set of rules for playing through Kill Team Toon World, which is what I'm off to do when this show's over. Basically, I finished all the prep last week, and if you guys didn't get a chance to see on the paint table last week, that's basically what it's entirely about. Was me doing this stuff. So putting down minis, getting all my painting done, getting all this terrain finished. All of the Toon World terrains done. I also finished my kill teams. People actually asked me about the process for the kill team, so I figured I would kind of talk about that today a little bit. And if anyone has any questions in the chat, we can talk about that stuff too. Like my kill team itself was primed with like an old Rust-Oleum. Actually, it's not old. It's a Rust-Oleum Anthracite is what it's called, which is like a charcoal gray from the Chalked series of Rust-Oleum paints. And then all the like this is this kind of the trick. All the details are painted in, and then I throw down just like a generic, like a 1-color wash over the whole thing. So this is them like almost completed before any of the panel lining's done or the highlights and stuff like that. And then obviously when I got them all finished, you can see here's them fighting them Necrons. All their panel lines are painted on. All the highlights are done. It's not a great photo, but you know, people ask. And then the terrain and the Necrons themselves were all done with a series of sprays and washes just to give them kind of that ancient-y look. I call it the Therian look because it looks like the Therians from AT-43. It was a color scheme I just fully ripped off from them because it was a factory color scheme basically done. You can see with like a bunch of sprays. I threw down some washes, and the wash is just like a homemade brown ink, brown paint, and a little bit of gloss varnish to make it go into the recesses, and you get this wonderful kind of like patina. I think I actually used old GW Flesh Wash as part of the foundation of it because I have several pots of old Flesh Wash left. So anyway, short story long, that's where my week's been. Let's go say hi to the chat and see what's going on. Who else we got in here now? I already said hi to GD Smith and the Saturday Night Live Band. Atragon X is here. Brandon Michael Javier's here. Yvaina's here. Nathaniel 1201. Hello. Mr. Ryan Tonfee. Lamashta is here. Zug 1974. Jim Crimmins Distinct is here. And I think that is it. Everybody's just kind of congratulating my man Malev right now. And he is very exciting. He says, I'm working on it now. I want to spoil it, but I just got the phone with Forbidden Soft Kevin. We're making a reskin. Oh, shit. A Grim Dark 28 reskin of Great Helm. That's exciting. And then Brian said, by the way, thanks for your help with the Lizardmen and Blood Bowl team last week. League fell through, but at least I have a team for next time. Oh, jeez, that sucks, man. Adrian says, assemble the team. War Guy, Magic Dude, Hatman. Yeah, it's true. And Andrew Reese is not a fan of this year. GMG's been good, but the world has been, it's been a weird year for sure. And everyone says we love Malev, which is very heartening. And my favorite thing about this. Lamasha says, could we get a Discord shout for when you're doing your live shows? Oh, I mean, sure. Yeah, I can post the Discord too. I spend so little time on Discord. It exists mostly for people to like share photos and talk to each other. But I could do that. I vastly underestimate the power of Discord, mostly because I barely use it. And Distinct says, reminds me of the mags that gave me summaries of scientific journal articles. So much stuff you can see, you can't see it all. Use to get close-ins and read originals if you want more data. That's actually a very interesting point. I do like that about any of these old books. Basically, is the idea that like it sort of puts it all in one place. You know, like this is a lot. Like there's a lot here in Secret Passages. And obviously I'm jumping around between topics because I'm just following the chat right now. But the fact that you've got, like, what else is in here? Like, again, I'm going to just skim through this video that I made and see if I can show you. Like, the first bit here is, this is on the Inquisitor trilogy, which is one of the OG Warhammer 40,000 novels. So, like, this Ian Watson trilogy is really the first 40K book that isn't like short fiction, kind of in the game books themselves. And there's another short stories book called Ignorant Armies that has a little bit of 40K fiction in it, but it's mostly Warhammer fiction. It kind of jumps back and forth. The original Deathwing story is, I think, in Ignorant Armies, which is the one with Two Heads Talking and Cloud Runner, who are the Deathwing Terminators that come back to their planet. The planet's all taken over by a Genestealer cult. Really interesting book. The Sky People and the People of the Plains are like the sort of like analogs for it. It's like a primitive society. It's where the Deathwing get all their like feather iconography and their stuff from. And yeah, and it's a really interesting article because it's talking about how the 40K in this book is like nothing like the 40K of today, and how like shocking it is to go back and read it now. It's super well illustrated. There's a lot of really neat stuff in here. We got some Vampire the Masquerade stuff, which I thought was really interesting. There's tons of like bits and pieces. Oh Jesus, see, that's what it does. Every time I try and skim forward, it shows an ad, and I'm not making you guys watch that. That's why I hate. I like pause it like a relevant section, but then I can't really like skip through the video and do highlights. Boring. But yeah, no, I think that's it's funny how when you get a magazine like that, it kind of makes you want to dig in everything else. Helmborg. John Smith is here. Hey, man. Howdy as well from down the QEW. And Alex Anderson is here. Hey, Ash. I love the FREE-PISODEs, man. Well, I love that you get to hang out. It's one of my favorite things to get to talk to people. And my parasocial relationship with the GMG community is the thing I look forward to the most in my week, because mostly it's just me by myself talking to a camera. So getting to actually hang out with people and talk is a great thing. Distinct says, Final Look artist that sells graffiti supplies. You can get fine spray caps to swap with the bad ones. Yeah, I actually buy a bag of those. I think even Michaels used to sell them, because they for a while had rattle cans for doing like graffiti art. And I know Amazon, actually let's just look it up. I'm pretty sure Amazon does spray can nozzles. Your mileage may vary though, because a lot of countries will restrict those things for sale weirdly, in order to maybe graffiti in the title. Yeah, Amazon 20-pack flat jet caps. You can get them right here on it. I don't feel like actually showing an Amazon thing, but there's like a $13 you can get 20 caps in a variety of different nozzle styles. You can get versatile, adjustable, precision, and like a bunch of other ones for doing different things. Yeah, there's a million listings on here actually for like $11. And they're all gonna have that common bottom thread there. Interesting. Yeah. No, I was gonna say, thing is that in Canada it's relatively accessible. It might be that some other places you cannot get those. Brian Siege says, my gaming group's hyped for Great Helm. Well, that's one of the last things I get to show you guys is my Great Helm board, which you guys, I don't know if you saw this in the episode previous, but I did actually, oh well, I have to actually go find that now. It's in this one, I think, because I took a picture of it for on the paint table, and it's, yeah, here it is. It's this thing right here. Oh, it's blurry as shit. That sucks. Well, you get the idea. Let me just move that over there, and then do the thing, and do the stuff. And then you guys can see the thing and the stuff. I gotta show it this way. He said, question mark? Yeah, it's this thing. Here we go. I hate when everything resizes for no reason. But here you go. You guys can see this. This is my Great Helm board, and it's basically, everything's from the dollar store. So it is a dollar store 8x10 frame, like a wooden painting frame, and then I got some of that craft foam and Mod Podge and just some sand, and I cut 1-inch sort of panels out of the Mod Podge to make flagstones, and then just sanded in between them, and then Mod Podge the whole thing down. So I'm gonna have this wonderful kind of like courtyard battle terrain thing. And I'm actually going through my miniatures because I want to do a unit of the Bretonnian Knights of the Realm on foot as like one of my Great Helm sides, but I'm kind of like wanting to use old stuff for the other side. And I have a huge collection of old confrontation miniatures where I was like, maybe I'll just paint up some confrontation miniatures because it's been a hot minute since I looked at any of that stuff, and it would be great to get some of that stuff actually on the table and let people see it because it's so cool. It's such a great game, and it's probably in limbo forever, so who knows if it's going to come back or not. G.D. Smith says, congrats on Great Helm. Forbidden Great Helm, people talking about. Helmborg, Forbidden Helm is definitely going to be slick. He's crowdsourcing names right now for whatever this project's going to be. Everything about Forbidden Sama and Great Helm smashed together. Sweet. Jim says, Secret Passages books look so cool. I like they're written for 12-year-old me. I haven't bought the PDF yet, but I found them on Draft 3 RPG. Such a cool product. Yeah. Major Traffic says, Great Helm Gothic. Tim Lashman's here. Hey, Ash, cheers from Pennsylvania. I love your channel, man. Well, thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that, dude. I'm going to quickly take some stuff from the mailbag, but I'm going to try and finish through the chat and catch up to the bottom just so I can know where I ended off. Lamash just said, GW switched the nozzles for their cans, which is a real bummer. I really like the Wraithbone spray for priming white. Oh, did they really? Then they must have resourced it again. Now, as a bit of insider info from that over time, there have been several periods in GW's history where they've had local suppliers for their spray. So that might not be a universal experience. It might be that like UK spray is different from North American spray, and even Canadian spray is different from US spray because some of the packagings for spray paints need to be different, like region by region. So your mileage may vary. If you've got like bad nozzles on some weird supply, it might very well be that that supply is local to you and not everyone's experiencing that problem. So don't be shocked if like people don't know what you're talking about, or something is wonky or different in a different region, and you know it's slightly different. The consumable products at GW very often can become regionalized just because the laws for like for instance, like I don't think there's a hobby knife at all in the UK because the laws around knives and like craft knives in particular are completely different than they are in North America. So like you can get like an X-Acto style knife from GW in Canada. I don't think you can buy it in the UK, or at least you couldn't for a long time. And that was why they came up with that mold line scraper that was like a very similar product to like a hobby knife, but it basically circumvented all the regulation around knives. Raincoat Bear says, hey Ash, we played Battletech Alpha Strike last night using the D12 variants, and it was great. Maybe the most controversial thing I've ever said on the internet was use D12s for your Alpha Strike games and roll point by point for damage. It's so much easier. The one thing it does do is it means that like it does screw up the stats, and people didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that there was a bell curve, but it meant that like you had like a linear application of stat mods as opposed to stats being more valuable up close than they are far away. Where you're almost basically auto hitting up close, and then further away your modifiers mean more up close than they do far away. Basically, is the math of it. But like if you're just doing something consistently, the game doesn't care. If everyone's using D12s, like if one side was using D12s and one side was using D6s, it would matter. That's not how the game works. If everyone's using D12s, it'll just be the same. It just means that you can actually have guys shooting far away and have it matter and mean something. Tobias says, is your YouTube broken today? I did not display my super chat and charged me twice. I cannot speak to YouTube, bro. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I do not know. It did not display and it charged me twice. I don't know what's going on with any of that, man. I'm sorry I'm not Google. Jim Cribbett, thank you so much for the attempt at the super chat. Jim said, I'll be insta-buying the Aces box because the Alpha Strike campaign sounds excellent. I hope that goes well. And Malev says, to battle, I'm stoked to see what flashed up. What people are doing with the frames are really awesome. And then John Ash says, blurry as shit accurately describes my close-up vision for the last 6 months or so. Yeah, me too, man. And now Google canceled it. Weird. I'm sorry, Tobias, man. That's super weird, dude. Let me go. Here, I'll go quickly off of here and go on to here and see if I can pull it up and see what's going on. I don't think anything's wrong with it, but I can't be sure because I don't trust the internet. What with it sucking at all. It says I'm live, and I will pull up this so I can see the chat. Enable that, maybe. Oh, maybe it's because I have monetization turned off for it. I'll turn it on right now and see if maybe it'll work now. I think I had monetization turned off for it so you guys wouldn't watch ads while it was live. I usually turn them on afterwards, and maybe that interfered with the super chat, dude. I'm so sorry. So it's on now. Maybe that will help. I'll just turn that off. We shall see what we can see. That goes away, and then this comes back. I'm gonna take some questions from the mailbag. Okay, so yeah, Tobias, I think hopefully it's fixed now. So first question's from David Stevenson, and these are all patron questions, by the way. So if you're looking for the mailbag and you're not a patron, this is the thing they get to do. They get to long form questions into our Monday shows. He said, do you have more 3rd edition 40k plan with City Fight or moving on from 4th, the next classic 40k project? Also, see below, I finished painting my Chaos Sorcerer. Ooh, let me check it out. I'm gonna show you guys too. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so he was painting this awesome old Chaos Sorcerer. We have a section for like putting stuff into the mailbag too, so we can share projects, and that looks great. I love that old Chaos stuff. It's so weird. You know what I mean? Like, it's got like a... I get that like modern miniatures have like more access to detail, and this is kind of a flat cast because it's metal. Like, that's an old pewter miniature, but that's still a great model. Like, you can't tell me that's not a great model. Weird fucking head and weird power axe and stuff. He's doing a 400 point army for 3rd edition 40k for 3rd edition project. That's so cool. So the short story long is yes. What happened was, and this is like no surprise to anybody, we had to hustle basically doing the whatchamacallit, the one page rules game, because the crowdfund was coming up soon. We wanted to get it done, so we hustled through to get that finished, and it just like took a slot in our painting time, like our get together and hobby time for doing the 3rd edition games. But they're coming back. Like, I got to paint my Dark Eldar, but I've been powering through getting all this kill team stuff done so I can do some solo work when there's no guests in, because the amount of time I have to have guests in is getting really limited. And I'll talk more about that maybe next month, because things are probably changing here quite a bit. But yeah, the short story long was that we just had some crowdfunding and stuff happen and go through that we really liked and wanted to support, and so we did additional stuff. And that took the slot, but the plan has not changed. Like, we're gonna keep finishing through the 6 original missions from 3rd edition 40k, and promise I need to paint another 3rd edition army for it. And so painting time is all time for me, when you do all of this shit completely by yourself, when you are the editor, painter, writer, host, head janitor, CFO, CEO of your own little enterprise. Yeah, the only thing I don't have is time. If they invent a 25th hour in the day, I'll be very excited. So yes, I will get that done. And Dave, you'll get to see it probably in the near future, next couple months. Albert says, have you used gaming miniatures for board games? I was playing Sorry with my daughter, and I could see it feeling not too different from Space Hulk if I replaced tokens with Space Marines and Gene Stealers, or a Dungeon Crawler if I brought some fantasy minis. Absolutely, immediately, yes. Almost every board game becomes more fun if you like Monopoly becomes more fun if you just reskin it as like a tabletop adventure. Like, imagine reskinning Monopoly to being you're in the city for a day with your heroic adventurer, and they're starting bar fights and acquiring territory. You can do that with all of them. I would 100% encourage anybody to take any game that they like playing with their family and reskin it with minis. I've done X's and O's that way. Just with like Gene Stealers and Space Marines, you know what I mean? Like, you can teach a kid. The idea of like playing tabletop games with your kids is just about unlocking the creativity of like not limiting your imagination to what it says you're supposed to be thinking about and doing. If you can get people kind of unshackled by that, the sky's pretty much the limit. Yeah, Interview just tested. Thanks, man. Tested the super chats, and apparently me turning on monetization was all that needed to happen, and now it's working. Tobias says, it's fine. I just wanted to remind you to plug the Patreon. I will, between Tobias and Andrew. they're my unofficial patron bosses, basically, reminding me to do shit. Evil Bear Skirmish is here. And John says, I plan to get that Conflict 47 server when it shows up at Torchlight. I hope it does soon. Yeah, I think they're doing that one new. And Dan Fox says D12s for Battletech Classic or Alpha Strike is the devil. Well, it doesn't work for Classic, but I think it works fine for Alpha Strike, bro. Dan and I will die on this hill together, basically, fighting for my desire for people to use different dice and to change games if they don't like it. It's all funny games says I do like that, but it gives lights an auto plus one of their TMNs for being small, and it's even better. Yes, and then lights survive more because most of the lights only have like 1 to 3, like 2 to 3 actual like hitboxes. I think my Locust has like 1 structure and 2 armor. So them getting plus 1 of their TMN for being light is important. And then John said, I require more 40k, please. Tobias said, oh my god, here we go. A friendly reminder for Ash to plug the Patreon. Thanks, buddy. You're the best. I shall plug the Patreon now. Hey, if you want this to keep going, the only thing that keeps it going is Patreon, because let me tell you, there is absolutely $0 in talking about indie games on the internet. Fun fact, the amount of Google revenue that GMG makes is not even enough to pay the power bill, mostly, for the studio. It is shockingly low, and that is because people don't give a shit about indie games in the mainstream. So if you are a fan of it, the only way to support GMG really is directly. The views do nothing, and they do even less recently since Google keeps changing their algorithm. And then Andrew B said, finally, I haven't been able to watch in a while, so I'm just curious how the channels are doing. The other channels are doing okay. Throwback Thursday and the channel for GMG's Inside Tabletop are the two that are doing the best. We took Inside Tabletop offline for the summer, so Chris and I could actually like focus on doing other things, and Chris is obviously building his Lords of War channel still, and yeah, like I just finished saying, the Throwback Thursday one just got paused because we had other projects come through for the indie game sphere on the main channel, but they're doing fine. The 40k one is the slowest one, which is really funny, mostly because yeah, it's lost in a sea of other 40k channels. But you're gonna get to see some Kill Team there soon, so get excited about that. Zug says, people who trust computers have never had Microsoft Word erase their term paper 5 hours before it was due. Jesus. And then Uber Curse said, get into Blackout currently. It's an amazing system. Yeah, we really enjoyed Blackout. It's a fun game, and the Neil Blonde campiness of it is very cool. Joe Johnson says, hey, Ash, I hope all's well in Canada Land. Glad to be able to catch you live. Glad to be able to have you, dude. Things are sunny and bright in Canada Land right now. It's weirdly still like warm and sunshiny here, which I get concerned about when it's almost October, but we've had kind of like a late summer warm spell that's slowly tapering off. The nights are getting cooler here, but it's still relatively like I don't know why I'm still walking around in a t-shirt on the 29th of September. Feels like it shouldn't be appropriate. But other than that, great. And then Leave Bears says 30-40k has to be Necrons, where they be 3rd or 4th. And then I said Monopoly Helm incoming. JJ here says, hey ho, what's up, chat? It seems like everything's going okay. Monopoly Gang Wars. And then Jim says Boardwalk Helm, Park Place Helm. You guys are great. Jim says, I picked up my Kill Team Tomb World tomorrow, and it'll take me 7 to 8 months to paint what Ash did this week. How? Mostly just me being very efficient at painting. It's like, so I always equate, when people ask me how I can paint so quickly, I always equate it to Kohan the Barbarian from Discworld. If you guys have never read the Discworld trilogy, or the trilogy's books, one of my favorite characters in Discworld is Kohan. So he's like the Conan knockoff. Discworld is basically like not like a parody versions of every fantasy thing. Rincewind the Wizard being like the most successful and like important wizard of all time, but he's a complete fraud. Death is one of the most important characters in the thing. And Kohan the Barbarian, his only skill at like almost 100 years old is that he gets really, really good at not dying. That's like the only skill you need. So you don't necessarily have to like be the best fighter. You don't have to be the best like thief or adventurer. You don't have to be the smartest. You just have to be really good at not getting killed, at surviving. And so like I'm that way with painting. I'm like the Kohan the Barbarian of painting. I got really good at getting stuff done kind of good and kind of fast, and championing the perfection is the enemy of the good style of painting. So it's about kind of like knowing what's going to look good from 2 feet away, how to quickly get the result that you want, and mixing techniques. Like I don't stick with a single technique. I don't stick with like airbrushing or washing or any one thing as like my signature skill. I tend to kind of blend different tricks to get things done. Andrew B, thanks for the super chat, man. Some money for the lights. Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I really appreciate that. That is literally that is a quarter of what GMG makes every month from views, because views ain't shit on the internet anymore. And we will talk about that in the near future, like the fact that really there is no future for GMG on YouTube. It's going to mostly have to be on Patreon, I think, because people just generally don't care about small boutique things. YouTube will probably still be where they get featured to try and get them in front of as many people as possible, but it's not really like it's just not a viable thing with the way that social media has turned in the last little while. So I got to figure out a way to keep it happening in a sustainable way so that more artists can get to market and more people can get shown off. We'll see how that goes, though. Bruce said, Bruce Wayne. Oh my God, Bruce Wayne's here. Hey man, you could fund my entire life in like 5 minutes if you're Bruce Wayne. Any suggestions? Your superpower's money. Hey man, let's do this. Any suggestions on the best easy skirmish game? I'm trying to get someone who doesn't play tabletop games into it. Okay, well, there's a variety of options there. So super easy. There's going to be something in every genre. Really, it's about how do you show the genre you think that person's going to be most excited about in an accessible way. The best things I can suggest on what to look for are, like without giving you specific suggestions, because you know this person you're trying to teach better than anyone else. Pick something they like. So whether it's science fiction, horror, crime, like and any of those things. Like a great example, one of my favorite examples is people who like scary movies and crime stuff will very often gravitate towards like a hybrid of like board game and miniature game. So like Betrayal at House on the Hill is one of my favorite ones, because you can play it with like a relatively small group, like 3 people is enough to play it effectively, and the game's going to be a surprise and it's you against the game. Right? So whenever you're trying to learn a game, here's element number 1. Try and find some type of game where it's not you against the other person. Because one of the things that's a barrier to new people getting into tabletop gaming very often is not knowing they don't know anything compared to the person that's teaching them. So if you can have an experience where it's you and them together while you're teaching them against the game, they never feel a level of unpreparedness, or like you're either talking down to them to get them to win, or you're destroying them because you know more information than they do and you have more experience. Whenever it's you and them against the game, they get to feel a level of like success, because you're both struggling against something that isn't that isn't the person that's trying to teach them at the same time. So that's a really good one. Any cooperative games will typically be more successful in recruiting people into like playing tabletop games than not. And then don't be afraid to modify what you're doing to the comprehension of the person. One of my favorite all-time bits is, what's her name? The girl from True Blood. She teaches John Bernthal to play D&D in like 30 seconds. And it might be like the greatest D&D thing I've ever seen. I think she's on a bunch of the D&D like webcasts too. What's her name? I'm gonna totally butcher this if I don't remember it right now. Her name is Deborah Ann Wall. She's fantastic. She does this. You can see it. You just search John Bernthal D&D and it'll come up. It's one of the best, I would say, like miniature TED Talks when you realize what she's actually doing about how to teach somebody anything they're completely unfamiliar with. And that's to just jump into it's tell, show, have a go. So she tells them what they're about to do. She shows them what it would be like, and then they just start doing it. And it removes all of the barriers and objections that he has, like in real time, where you can see him be like, well, I don't know anything about it. And she goes, well, let's just do it right now. And he's like, what? And he's like, okay. And she just starts doing it with him. She explains what it is, and then she just immediately launches into it. And he's totally, you can see him get pulled into the experience. And he's having a real experience all of a sudden, moments after like thinking it was something that was completely inaccessible to him because he didn't know anything about it. And that really is sort of the greatest, I think, like picture, like snapshot of what it feels like on the other side of not knowing about what your specific hobby or interest is. So like you can relate the same things to like skateboarding or mountain climbing or backpacking or camping outside. Like it feels like I don't know enough about something until I just go do it. And so to have someone that makes you feel safe doing something while you're doing it, I think is a real joy. So that would be, I think, a really great way for you to maybe like parse it, is go and have a look at something like that Deborah Ann Wall clip, and be like, how could I take whatever game I'm playing? If you can pick a collaborative one, even better, and then tailor the experience to their knowledge level. And what that means, like practically, when you're teaching tabletop games, is like paint both sides. Don't it makes them engage with the hobby part right away, but give them the experience that they're going to have by having like painted miniatures. Curate like some simple, like don't worry about them doing it the right best way. Worry about doing it a way that doesn't feel like it's overwhelming, right? And try and put yourself in their shoes. Like, don't overwhelm them with information. Just pick out the essential things of what they want to know and show them that stuff in a way that feels like accessible. I'm all about on-ramping into tabletop games, and I without having you experience me do it, I think that clip, that Deborah Ann Wall clip with John Bernthal, is like the best reference point to this person. I think feels like there's a barrier to them doing something, and then just immediately smashing that barrier down by just being like, no, we'll do it right now. And like you can teach someone a miniature game with like the things in front of you on a table if you want to, just by coming up with simple rules of like, no, you get to move 3 squares, like you divide up the table and do it. Like it really is that simple. And yeah, I think the easier you make it, the better it is. Jim says, look at, now everyone's getting specific. Look at space weirdos or sword weirdos. I would say look at a board game hybrid. Look at something that's accessible to what they like. There's probably a board game hybrid out there to whatever their specific interest is. If they like a movie or a TV show, there'll be something like that out there. Start with something like that and then move into something a little more advanced. Jim's giving all kinds of advice though, which is great. Thanks, Jim. John Smith says, when it stays warm for too long, it bodes ill for winter. Yeah, we might have a bad winter. Major says, did you speak on the Horus Heresy free PDF for militia armies? I haven't yet, no. And then Alex Sarah says, any plans to look at the revamped War Machine? I got the Signar trenches, but haven't built them yet. I'm nervous about the trolls are going to come out right now, but I'm happy they got pushed. Yeah, man, I do think I'm going to probably get into it with like a Battle Box League with Jordan. Because Jordan's being pressured by his friends to play War Machine to do it. And if he starts doing it, I'll have someone to do like the newer miniatures with. I have a couple battle boxes to put together. I have a Troll one, I have a Khador one, and I have they're like the not Everblight ones now. But I will for sure. I'll get there. There's just a very long line of things that I have to do. And that's one that specifically needs an opponent, right? Jez says the quest for Shoop. Everybody congratulating Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Uranus says best easy skirmish game is Relic Blade. Hard agree. Relic Blade's a great one, and it's the one I would do after like some type of board game hybrid. Board game hybrid also could be like Malev's Demon Ship. That's a good example of one too. Jim says I used to have money, but I started painting these little plastic toys. Just says Rangers Shadow Diva is a great co-op introduction game. It sure is. Zug immediately got the name right. And then Aaron Beecher said, I love that point and on-ramp. I think I remember you sharing that during a discussion playing Darktide. Yeah, that's exactly it. Darktide's another one of those ones where it's you. Like, Darktide is baffling to me. And I think it was just timing and the fact that they're firehosing out product, and the Darktide didn't do that well, like story-wise. I'm so surprised they didn't do something like Darktide with Space Marine 2. I'm hoping for Space Marine 3 they finally get their shit together and make like a quality cooperative product that ties into that kind of thing. Because I would love to have that as an accessible box or thing to teach people about tabletop gaming. Because there's literally no company on earth that's better equipped and suited to do it with their market penetration, that has more resources to do it than the GW Design Studios, and more reason to, because they have this massive influx coming of like inexperienced fans who aren't necessarily tabletop gamers yet, who just need a door. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like they're this massive boat, and if you ever stood next to a massive boat, you realize there's not really a good way to get onto it. You need some door in the side and like hatch with a walkway going up to it to get onto a boat. Most boats are really fucking hard to get onto unless the door's open. And there's a lot of people standing around wishing they could get on the GW boat, not really knowing how just yet. It would be so easy for them to open a door. So I hope they do so at some point. LARPing, say hello from the gym. Hey man, I just got back from the gym actually. I was doing back and biceps today. And then Ranko's Brandon says, to be fair, actors are not unfamiliar with role playing. No, but so that, and I think that's the beautiful part of that, is you see John immediately realize he already knows how to do this, and the barrier was completely in his mind, right? Because what they're effectively doing is they're doing a read through together. They're doing an improv acting session together where one person is leading the improv. Right. And you can see John's brain click in as soon as she starts asking him questions, and his brain goes to imagining the place his character is supposed to be. But thinking that there was some kind of homework he needed to do beforehand or pre-existing expertise he needed was the thing that kept him from doing it. And that's the beautiful part about that clip, right? Is that like she smashes through that X like immediately. And then Giles G. Smith says, I think Gasland's one of the best games to introduce to a newbie and a super low barrier to entry. Gasland's absolutely, and it's a party game too. So it's one of the great ones to do a group with. Gasland's is a great one. Prerequisite though, they should be at least a little bit into cars. Although if they like the Twisted Metal TV show at this point, then that can be your on-ramp. Basically like, why don't we play this game? It's kind of like Twisted Metal. And then just jump in and do that. And Steel and Story says, I found Frostgrade easy to teach, but agree, board game hybrid is so much easier to digest, especially with like the proliferation of them right now that are like IP related. The Thing board game was really good, the most recent one. I have to paint up the minis for it still because I have them all and they're so awesome. It's one of like the winter things I've wanted to do for a while. Don't Look Back from Black Slate Studio. If you haven't played Don't Look Back, like if you have horror fans, you can literally find a Don't Look Back expansion. Don't Look Back, Black Site Studio. If you have a horror movie franchise that you like, you can most likely find something in Don't Look Back for it. So if you haven't checked this one out before, there's a bajillion physical products for it. It's got all kinds of resources available, and you can get bundles that are all kind of themed, right? So like there's a starter one. There's like a Camp Silver like terrain pack that you can get. And then all of the, I think the digital products, or is it the resources set that has all the other, no, it's all rules. There's a section that's, I think, mostly all of the various like bundles of different stories. Yeah, here we go. So like the Killer Bot, the Gray Aliens, the Leatherface one, the Founding 1698. I love this one. It takes it through time. Oh, I should get this one. I don't have this one yet. That's so friggin' cool. So it goes back in time basically to like before the town of, or the region, the Northwoods was basically like founded. Oh, why don't I have the digital expansion 1698? Ben, what are you doing to me? But yeah, all the different Northwood like killers. There's like deep ones. And like the dude with the hook, it's like I know what you did last summer, pad guy. But yeah, if they're horror fans, like this is the perfect cooperative one to do, because again, it's all the killers all done procedurally. Max's hot rod. Look at these amazing standing stones. A delivery van, hell yeah. Mr. Whipper's ice cream truck. I love everything that's happening in this right here. There's a bust of Seth here. I love that Seth is like the mascot. Ah, so good. Anyway. But that idea basically of finding something that they might already have some sort of like familiarity with, I think is great. Ringo Spare saying GW literally leaving money on the table by not producing a noob casual board game or real stuff for 40k. Why is Space Hike not an evergreen product? I wonder if, I mean, Richard Hollowell's passed away. I do wonder why they haven't done a Space Hulk again. It feels like they could very easily do like a modern Space Hulk, just with like the characters from Space Marine 2, and have like the little crit. You know what I mean? Like you do like a more Space Hulk fans probably wouldn't like it, but it'd be really good for transitioning people from the video game into the tabletop game. Yes, absolutely. And then Doug says Hero Quest, one of my favorite picks. Absolutely, I agree with that. Major X says the Horse Energy Simulation PDF seems to be the largest free game unlock ever from GW. It seems odd considering all things GW does charge for with wide open and model agnostic. It's an odd PDF to show up. The studio for Forge World is a little different from the main studio, and I actually look at it more like, well, we sold you some very expensive militia models, and we're planning on phasing them out. So here's this last thing you can have for 3 years, and then we won't support it again. So it's actually not that odd to me, because it just feels like a way of giving them something for this edition. And then after not selling those miniatures for 3 years, being like, this is going to the Legends and we're not going to support it anymore. And if you want to make your own translation, go ahead. It does feel like that's kind of where it's going. Zug says, the thing about Gasland is actually more complex than it seems. It could be intimidating when the collisions get started. Yeah, it could be. I think it just needs a good referee. It's like all games. You know what I mean? If you get a good referee that just stats up all the cars that are going to be available, or like stats up cars like based upon like what somebody shows up with, and just been like, this one's a hot rod, this one's a pickup truck, this one's a whatever, and just hands out cards and then handles all the rules interactions for you. It's about curating the experience more than anything else, but you need a good referee. Hero Quest is a great pick, but it requires a referee once again. And then Zug says, taking my cue from Little Wars TV, I actually asked ChatGPT to make me a trilogy, and being a soulless machine, it was able to make something way more terrifying than I could. Oh my god. Underscore says, Bruce Wayne, it's not ideal, but between the Kill Team light rules and Titus missions, you're set. Main thing is just having the Titus SAT card, otherwise you can use any Joint Ops PAB. So, interestingly, the Kill Team app has all of the Space Marine 2 Kill Team releases. There's actually a mission for Space Marine 2 on there, and it has the Titus card and a character card for like his 2 buddies, and then a Joint Ops mission. It's free download. Go to the mission section of the Kill Team app, and you can get all that stuff for free. And then Zog says, what you guys are talking about was the Space Marine Adventures line, which is horribly undermarketed. Absolutely 100% agree, and was only available in the US. If it hadn't been bespoke made just for one market in the US, and specifically for Barnes & Noble, I think it would have been great. I think they sold it at Target afterwards, maybe too. But I think the original Space Marine Adventures was Barnes & Noble exclusive. Lard Bennett says, I'm not sure they do cardboard in-house, and board games are lower margins than what they get in the ordinary plastic that they make and sell. Absolutely true. Although they do quite a bit of cardstock now, and even some colored MDF for Kill Team. So that may change. Bruce Wayne says, I really want Tyranid Attack. I just got a copy of it on sale. It was brought up here by Brian Krantz, which was great. That was the box that I got, and it seems like it's a good cooperative game. I just wish it came with miniatures for the Tyranids. Of Oil and Iron says, hey Ash, Of Oil and Iron launches tomorrow. I wonder if you get a chance to take a look at it. Work on the final touches with your Steam on in the background. Awesome, man. For those of you who don't know what that is, this was actually something that was sent to me last week. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I'm going to put it up on the I'll talk about it in a minute, actually, because we're winding down. We're almost at an hour. I'm going to put this on the poll for next week, or this week rather, for the Indie Hour. This is a new Diesel Punk skirmish game. And if you guys are interested, you can actually go download a free model right now by putting your email address in. And I guess this launches very soon. But it's a small, if you play it in 15 mil, it's like a small table, 2x3, sort of like kitchen table size game. Mech skirmishing in like what's that game? That game called Scythe. The dude who did the Scythe art style reminds me of that. This sort of like diesel punk, World War I, World War II mecha combat style thing. And the models look really cool. The stat block's really neat. There's a really neat like engine management system for it too. So it does have some sort of resource management on it, and you guys can go check it out. There's little pluggies. Thanks for coming to the chat, man. I hope you guys enjoy checking it out. And yeah, go check out the Kickstarter if you're interested. But you can just grab a free model right now if you're a 3D printer. There's a free STL on there you can go and download and print off if you just want to check that out. Necromolds is also a good one. Can I do a review of Necromolds? I could do I already did a review of Necromolds. There's all kinds of Necromold stuff on here. Steel and Stray says, do you have any recommendations on narrative mass fantasy battle games? I'm looking at Oathmark. Anything that grows army characters' equipment over time. Check out Hobgoblin. My buddy Mike Hutchinson, who also wrote Gaslands. He did a game called Hobgoblin that has tons of that narrative stuff in it. It's actually a really neat dark fantasy game. And it's got some progression and some campaign stuff in it too. So you can go download that off the Planet Smasher Games website. And I believe it also has an Army Builder app, a bunch of additional downloads. You can see my review of it here too. And art done by the illustrious, oh shoot, I've forgotten his name. Crum something? Crum. I've forgotten his name. Did the cover. Excellent artwork in here too. And lovely miniatures. So I'd recommend that one. Lamash just says, you ever think about doing a stream of you playing Space Marine 2? I have nothing that can run Space Marine 2. I have the Space Marine 2 controller, but I own a PS5. I don't know if you know this, but I'm desperately poor when it comes to this. The guerrilla part of Grail Miniature Games is I'm doing this on an iMac that I fixed out of the trash and got off Facebook Marketplace. There's no money in the budget for a PS5. The kids got a Switch, and that was the whole thing. Jacob Rozalski, a big inspiration, absolutely. And then also Iron Harvest video game, that's cool. I'm a Tribes member of yours. Oh, fantastic! Everybody's just connecting. So let's talk about what's coming up because we're just about done. We've hit an hour. So the rest of this week, obviously, is going to be doing a whole bunch of kill team stuff because I've got my joint ops campaign system here. I'm going to be testing out, so you can see that coming out on Let's Play on Saturday. And the plan for the joint ops is still going to be to do 3 missions of what's going on below decks in the Necron Tomb world. 3 missions doing the entire Typhon campaign because it's a ladder campaign that goes left and right. And then rounding out the 3 missions of the kill team campaign. So it's going to be interesting because I got some stuff to record. Then I go and paint a whole bunch. So the next thing you see on the paint table is going to be a bunch of like Tyranid scenery to do joint ops with. And then I got to paint my other kill team and the NPOs for Typhon. So I've got a whole bunch of Tyranids, more Death Watch, and more terrain that needs to get painted up before I can start recording that next week, and that's this week's on the paint table. So like 9 episodes of Kill Team that need to get recorded this week, and a whole bunch of painting to go along with it, because that's just going to set like 9 episodes of anything is about 2 and a bit months, so almost 2 months of episodes to air. And yeah, then I got more book reviews I got to do this week. I've got a bunch of stuff over here that's get reviewed. I got to paint up my Scions for Warcrow, so Ben and I can do some more content. I got to record more For Whom the Bell Crows, the Warcrow podcast that Ben and I are doing for Heroes to Zeros. I got to edit and upload 3 episodes of Tactical Awareness, as well as a new ITS Season 17 episode of the Infinity Battle Report series that I do because I played a game of Infinity last night, which I didn't even talk about. So, yeah, all kinds of shit to do. Just asked, have I seen Big Numpties, a minigame of lumbering idiots? I have not, but if you're a patron, go recommend it for the Indie Hour. And then that's my last bit that I'll plug right now, is obviously we will be doing the poll this week. I'm going to be putting it up right after this video ends. Of what indie games we will be voting on for us to cover on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, we are doing Risk Breakers Gambit. That was recorded last week. So you can check out this kind of Final Fantasy inspired game. And then once again, if you like Knights and playing games with Knights, go check out my boy Malev's game. Oh my God, I want another bunch of monies. Another like 20 backers. $66,000 dues, my God, for the Great Helm campaign. If you like Knights and you like Sean, because he collaborated with Sean Sutter from Metal King Studios as well. And I'm super excited and happy and proud of him for all the hard work he's done on this. And he is being justifiably rewarded by people being excited about his game. So that's it, man. We're done for the week, the free episode. I'll see you guys next month. if you guys are around then for the next free episode of this. And if you could become a GMG patron, it's only $1. If you jump in, and if every single person who was a free member of the Patreon did a $1 do, if every subscriber did a $1 do, that'd be amazing. But it gets you access to voting on the Indie Hour, all the Monday shows, all the additional behind the scenes content. You get work in progress updates on all the things I'm painting, and obviously access to the mailbag and stuff too. So I'd super appreciate it. And it would help keep the lights on. I don't think it'll buy a PS5 for me to do streams, but it might. If all 120,000 people that are YouTube subscribers did that, that would solve that problem overnight. As it stands, I had to replace a water heater at the studio this week, and it did not cost nothing. So I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will see the patrons on Wednesday for our next Indie Hour, and the rest of you on the weekend for more episodes, well, for the Let's Play for Kill Team and all our reviews. Then you'll see another On the Paint Table, see what I got done on Sunday. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.